everyone, it's Bethany. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to be making a really quick and simple desktop ironing board or pressing pad. I have been wanting to make one of these as I am working more and more with applique, so I wanted a little space on my desk and a little pad where I could use my iron to press my little pieces down as I'm working on my projects. And instead of using a traditional ironing board and having to set that up in my craft space, or using one of those mini ironing boards for my desk, which I find that are still too big, I thought I would make a custom one for myself. There are so many ways to make these, so if you want to do it a little bit differently, then go ahead. I'm just going to share how I'm going to make mine. So for the base of my ironing board or pressing pad, I'm going to use a piece of plywood. I had this cut down to 12 by 12, and my husband did a 12 by 12 board, but he also did some rounded corners. That is not mandatory. You can just do that if you'd like, but you can also just make this a perfect square. You can also have this cut for you at your local hardware store. Most hardware stores will do that if you ask, but you can also just have this cut down to any size that you wish, especially if you're wanting this to be a little bit bigger or a different shape. Then just go ahead and cut this to the shape and size that you desire. You're also going to need some cotton batting, and then I also picked up some of this Insul Bright, which is an insulated lining, so you'll want some type of heat layer on your pressing pad. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby, and it was actually in the bolts section, so I had it trimmed down for me, so you can just look in that section, and then the lady at the cutting counter can trim that down for you. For the cotton batting, I just purchased this in a pack separately. And then, of course, you're going to want some fabric of your choice. This is probably the funnest part of the project, is picking out a fun fabric that you like. This is from Hobby Lobby as well. I really like it, and I think it's going to make for a really pretty ironing board. Of course, you're also going to want to have some staples. A word of caution about your staples: make sure that they are not too long, because you don't want them to go through your board. So make sure you are measuring your board so that you can get staples that are short enough so they don't puncture the other side. And then some optional materials are a piece of felt. I'm going to use this to finish off the back of my ironing board, and then you can also get some anti-skid pads. I don't know if I'm going to use these today, but this is an option as well to place on the back of your board as a finishing touch, just to help so that it doesn't move around while you're pressing on it. You can also use shelf or drawer liner from just your regular grocery store. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on making this little pressing pad or desktop ironing board. Okay, so to create my board, I have my piece of wood, I have my cotton batting, I have my heat layer, and then I also have my fabric of choice. So I'm not going to go over the exact dimensions of what I cut these to, because of course that will be particular and specific to the size of board that you're using. But one thing I thought to do was, as I was cutting, I made each layer just about half an inch to an inch larger than the layer before it, just so that when I was pulling, then I would have a little bit more to pull over that layer before it. So that's what I thought I would do. Feel free to do it any way you like. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to pull layer by layer and staple each layer independently. And I thought, since I have the rounded corners, what I would do is I'm going to actually go through and I'm going to do my corners first, and then I will tuck in my sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do the batting layer first, and then I'll move on to the next couple layers. I like to pull in opposite corners, that way I know it's getting really tight as I go. So once all four corners have been stapled, the next step is you're going to essentially wrap this like a package. So you're going to wrap the sides over and staple them. Because I don't want the sides to get too bulky as I fold them over, as you notice, once I fold this over, this is going to be 3 layers thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to trim just a little triangle off of that piece. That way it doesn't get too incredibly thick. And that way I can, in the end, have a fairly nice and flat surface. Of course, it's not going to be perfectly flat, but it won't be too bulky on the corners. Okay, so that first layer is done. It looks really nice, and now I'm just going to start doing my second layer with the same method. I am doing my staples about an inch apart. Honestly, the more staples the better in my opinion. Staples are really affordable, so I'd rather have this done nice and tight and right the first time, and so I'm just going to use as many as I can, so feel free to do it however you wish. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and do my final layer. Now, of course, you can do some cleaning up and trimming as you go, but because I'm going to be finishing this off with a piece of felt, I'm not going to worry about it. So I'll go ahead and just do the same method with my final piece, which is my fabric layer. Now this is your final layer, so you'll want to make sure, just like your other layers, that you're pulling really tightly. That way your print, it looks really, really nice on the other side, and it's nice and tight and firm. Because this final layer of fabric is so thin, I'm not going to worry about doing all of the cuts on the edges. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it like a present and get it all stapled. Okay, once it's all stapled, you can go through and see if you need to add any more support with staples anywhere around. Again, you can also go through and trim up any pieces if you'd like to clean this up, and if you're not going to do any additional finishing. I'm actually going to add an additional piece of felt to the bottom. That way it just gives it a nice polished look on the bottom. Obviously this does not matter because it's the bottom size, but I thought it would give it just a nice polished look, and I thought it would be just a nice finishing touch to the bottom. So I'll go ahead and just trim this to size, and then I will get this all attached, and I'm going to use hot glue, but you can use any adhesive method that you'd like. can just add more glue as necessary. Again, I went and did the 4 corners just because I missed those a bit, but I really like how polished that looks. Again, you can add some little anti-skid pads that you can pick up at the hardware store or just your grocery store. You can also add a shelf liner to the bottom. That will also help to not only make sure it doesn't move around as you're ironing, but it will also protect the staples from scratching your table. I'm noticing that my staples are pretty sunk into my fabric, so they aren't going to be a problem, I don't believe, but if I feel the need to add these later, I always have them. For now, I'm just going to leave this as is because I really think it's going to be just fine like this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over, and there is my cute desktop ironing pad. I am really happy with how it turned out. At first I was telling you that the rounded corners wouldn't really be necessary, but I actually really liked them in the final product because not only did it make it look really, really nice, but it also made it really easy to wrap the fabric and not have to do any fancy tucking in the corners when I was wrapping and stapling. So I actually do really recommend that. It was made both applying and getting everything stapled really easy, plus the final look just really looks nice and soft. All right, so I love how this turned out. I cannot wait to start using it, and actually I really like how it feels on the table, so I'm not too worried about the anti-skid pads, but again, I will always add those if necessary. All right, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really nice, clean, and polished, and I think it's going to be a great addition to my craft room when I'm working on little pressing projects. Be sure to pop down in the comments and let me know if you're going to give this a try or if you've made one of these before, and as always, I'll place a link to all of the material I used in the description box below this video. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.